Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Business Spotlight. Today we have Oscar. Okay, now I'm going to tell you a bit about Oscar. We are absolutely privileged to have Oscar with us today. Oscar J. Mcentee. Oscar is a racing driver, but that's only one of his facets. He's also a business owner, he's an entrepreneur, and he has a vision. And I'm really looking forward to asking more questions and understanding more about Oscar. Those of you that have watched Spotlights up to now, and those of you that know me, will know that talking to Oscar is one step removed from me speaking to like Lewis Hamilton. You know, like that, as in this guy is a professional racing car driver and a person that is connected entrepreneurially to racing, which is a phenomenal thing to me. So welcome to Business Spotlight, Oscar. I really
Thank you very much.
appreciate it. You're
Excited to
very
be here.
no. It's all on our side. We're so pleased that you're giving us your time. Thank you so much. So let me introduce Mcentee Racing. Mcentee Racing. We've got a business owner here that is actually involved in several business ventures, which I think Oscar will tell us about in a little while. Jump on Oscar's website, guys, because Race the Future is the statement that he places across his website, which I think is really interesting. Again, maybe that's something you can explain a little more about in a while, Oscar. You're obviously Oxford based, so you're in Race Valley, yeah, down there, not Silicon Valley, but Race Valley. And it's interesting that you're using F1 designers to produce race cars and potentially road cars for the future. Great British engineering is what I read as well, which is fantastic. So, Oscar, please tell us a little more about your story. We're all ears. Go for it.
Absolutely. I'll start from the start. I mean, I've always been obsessed with racing and cars in general. More so the kind of just the design aspect, to be honest. Making something that's visually pleasing and exciting to look at. So yeah, I mean, when I left secondary school, I didn't really know how to get into motorsport. For someone who's not going down an engineering route or the
Mhm.
sciences or maths, it's quite difficult to find a way in. So yeah, I kind of just found a niche creating. Basically started a marketing and graphic design agency, creating kind of liveries for race teams, helmets for racing drivers, kind of branding, all the kind of graphic stuff you'd imagine. So yeah, so from kind of 16 to 18, I did that and got some success, got some designs around the world, traveled to various kind of high profile races and met race drivers. And I mean, really more than anything, it gave me the belief that I could pursue what I wanted to, which was starting a race team. So
Wow.
yeah, came from humble beginnings, and I worked basically full time in Subway, the sandwich shop. My official title being sandwich artist.
Nice. Brilliant.
Yeah,
What's your favorite? What's your favorite? Come on, what's your favorite sandwich? You got to tell us that.
oh, okay. So I mean, I used to eat meat, but recently that's changed
Oh.
because I don't eat meat anymore. So I'm on whatever fake meat alternative they're offering at the moment. But yeah, maybe a bit of sweet chili sauce, bit of spice. That'd
Okay,
be
I've
nice.
got you there. I've got you. I mean, you can't be into fast cars if you're not into chili and spice. That's not allowed, is it? That's got
Exactly, exactly.
so you. Okay, so let's pause there for a moment and just understand what you've said. So you've managed to break into one of the most I want to say challenging arenas on the planet. In terms of the sheer volume of players and people that want to be a part of it. You've broken through, and you've done it without being one of the hundreds, if not, well, obviously there are thousands of wannabe race drivers and so forth coming through from the karting world and such like. So that's not your routine. You've come in through just a sheer passion for the industry, really. Or is that the correct way to put it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, honestly, being a race driver was never really my passion. It was to create a brand that people could connect with. I
Mm.
really love the idea of bringing all the aspects of racing together. I love, like I say, the design, but I love the engineering. I love the people aspect. I love the traveling, just the competitive aspect of motorsport in general.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it was just pure passion that I really wanted to get involved with motorsport in building that brand that people could connect with and share that passion.
No, it's incredible. And I must say, I love your logo behind you. It's very cool. It is. It's striking. Um, okay, so now, what would you say? Let's think about this here. What would you say is your biggest attribute? Because you're translating a passion into business, right? Not everybody
Yeah.
can do that. We talk a lot about passion, Oscar, because if you're not passionate for what you do, well, you may as well change, haven't you? Go do something else, sell ice cream, do something else, because that ain't going to work if you're not passionate. But there
Yeah.
is a big difference between being able to turn passion into a successful business. So, what's the attribute that's for the benefit of the viewer, the listener, the people out there that are running plumbing businesses and car garages and architectural practices? You know, how did you do it? What's it based on?
Yeah. Well, the first thing that comes to mind, I don't want to paint a bad picture of myself, obviously, but I think a small amount of it is a chip on my shoulder. I think I wanted to
Okay.
prove something.
Ah,
Um, and I think I wanted to create something that was better than what other people were creating, to put it honestly. Competition is part of my life in terms of the sporting side, but just in terms of how my passion manifests, I do want to prove that I can make something that is really special. And I
mm,
think for me, I've really struggled at school and in kind of education because,
mm,
like I said, I didn't really see how I could put my skills into anything that made sense at school. And so I think that gave me a little bit of an edge that I felt like I had to prove it in different ways, and I think it made me, yeah, assertive in my decisions. And I think the other part of it is, fully believing in myself all the time, and
mm.
just doing things for enjoyment. I think trying not to be too strategic in the early days, just doing things for enjoyment, and if it's enjoyable, I continued it. Um, I was fortunate enough, not to have any risks at that moment, being so young. But yeah, just following where the enjoyment came from and where the passion was. And when you follow that, you kind of meet with the same people and the same mindset. And I think, that kind of community is where, you'll grow.
That's powerful, isn't it? I mean, I'm thinking about, being in the paddock myself, obviously on an amateur level over the years and doing different things in that arena. And it's arguably the most egotistical sort of testosterone filled, with all due respects to non-male people. But the point I'm making there is it's extremely what highly energized. So if you're not able to operate in that vacuum, you're going to struggle. So obviously you are a competitive man. How do you channel the competition, Oscar? The competitive nature, should I say? How do you channel that and bring people with you? Because I guess the risk is that other people, talented people maybe, don't get it and therefore might not fit. How do you find that?
Yeah, it's incredibly difficult. And I think one of the things I've learned is, dealing with people and how to harness their abilities is probably the most challenging part of running a business. So yeah, I mean, I think it's meeting people who have a similar spark to you. But it doesn't have to be the same as your spark. I think people maybe get caught up trying to find the exact same person like them, and then that never works.
That's a
I
mistake.
think,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. I think, working with humility, I mean, I think some of the best relationships I've had is with people that, you know, maybe our personal relationship isn't the best because they are so different, but on a professional level, their talent and ability is incredible. And
Mm.
it's just finding those people and working out, what is the shared vision. I think if you can find that shared vision and give someone the freedom, I think freedom's important. Give them the freedom to let their own skills manifest into that vision,
Mm.
um, is really important. So yeah, it's kind of a humility, just dealing with humility with people, to trust in their ability.
I like that word very much. There's a respect level there, huge respect for humility. You studied philosophy. Yeah, a little. Well, a
Yes.
little, probably a lot, actually. And it's interesting because you can, please, with respect, don't be offended by what I'm going to say. But it's clear that I'm talking to somebody that understands that subject, and the language is weaving in and out of that space. Very interesting. So humility, right? There were two things there that you mentioned that really, I think, the people listening to this show, this episode, need to really perhaps underline in their mind. Number one, humble, right? Humility, absolutely. The second one is shared vision, right? So
Yeah.
again, we talk a lot about values. So building teams should be value based.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But you don't have to, what's the word? You don't have to be in each other's pockets. You don't have to be carbon copies of each other. You just have to share common values underpinned by a common vision, right?
Yeah, I mean, you'd obviously, the whole point of the shared vision is it's shared, so you can't dictate your vision and say it's shared. So, I think
Absolutely, yeah.
that's it, like I say, giving the people the freedom
Codependency.
to explore their own vision within your vision, and
Yeah, yeah,
that
yeah,
will
yeah.
really aid, that collaborative effort to make something great.
Yeah, I've just said codependency, and I didn't mean to. I meant interdependency. It's the ability to be interdependent, right? It's
Yeah, yeah,
really interesting. I don't know if you've ever watched. I noticed on your LinkedIn profile that you follow Stephen Bartlett.
yeah,
Do you ever listen to Humphreys on the High Performance podcast?
yeah, yes, I have.
You probably know Jake, but I remember an interview with Toto Wolff, and
Hmm.
you know the interview.
I have seen clips of it, but I mean, I'm well versed in Toto Wolff because I think he's a brilliant character. So yeah,
Yeah, he is, isn't it? And he asked the question, Toto, so you built this team that's dominated F1 for 6 seasons back to back, or whatever it was. Was it seven constructors? I can't remember now.
yeah,
Anyway, and he said, look, how do you build a team that can do this? Like, tell everybody what the key is, because we're all struggling. And
yeah,
and I won't try to mimic the German accent because that would be really embarrassing. But he obviously said, um, look, guys, it's down to values. I have a sheet of paper and it's got our values written on it. We believe in them. We live these things, and we give the values to the interviewee, and we say, and what do you think? And we look them in the eye, and it's not so much what they say, but it's how they react.
yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I get that. You
Yeah,
know,
well, it's that intrinsic nature. I mean, you can tell right away whether someone truly, links with you. I think because especially from my own experience in business, a
Mm.
lot of people will say they share the vision, but that doesn't mean they do, and they have ulterior motives. So I think you can tell almost straight away when someone is being true to themselves.
So what's driving you then? Is it revenue? Is it profit? Is it brand? What is it?
No, I mean, it's not revenue to be honest. Obviously, it to a sense it is. It'd be nice to live comfortably.
You know,
But
sell, you're
no,
not in business, right? Yeah.
but no, I mean it truly is creation. I
Okay.
want to create something, and I think you hear about flow states and how to get the best out of people, performing. I think my flow state is when I'm creating things, and you know for me, I've seen my whole life as kind of a big art project, and you're just kind of continually painting on the same canvas.
Right.
And the business is just part of that canvas, to be honest. So
Mm.
yeah, it sounds a bit hippy dippy. I'm aware,
No,
but
no, 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 not at all.
yeah, but I think just the pure creation of something and seeing it kind of grow. I mean, it's been so exciting seeing something, be a tiny seed growing into somewhat of a, I say, medium-sized tree right now. It's not that large yet, but
Yeah, but let's avoid the cliches. But you got to keep what's the word? You got to keep nurturing the sapling, right?
yeah,
And okay. So there's how do you grow a tree? That's an interesting question to talk about with somebody, isn't it? How do you grow a tree? I mean, the reality is, if I'm reading you correctly, you have a North Star. You have a magnet that's pulling you through. That's code, by the way, everybody, for vision. For the destination that Oscar has. He wants to reach something, and the unquestionable commitment to that is clear. So, just wind the clock back. What was the toughest part of your journey so far? What would you say is undeniably, that was hard. That's the moment where I thought, get me back to Subway.
Well, I've never thought that, but um, honestly, speaking personally, I would actually say it's the period we're in right now.
Interesting.
So yeah, so I finished university 2 weeks ago, um, and the hope was to have more funding in the business to sustain a few people's jobs, and we haven't reached that funding.
Okay.
Um, so we're now at the point where, I'm looking at my own life and do I look at getting a corporate job
Mm,
and stepping back from the business slightly? Do we go all in and try raise a large amount of money, but then there's a risk that, potentially the funding is running dry for us?
mm.
So we're in a tough stage right now because I no longer have a safety blanket, but that's also quite exciting. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, absolutely. It's what's the phrase? I mean, there's loads spring to mind, but the how can we put this for everybody that will make sense? The guy that's digging for gold, that just gets tired. The risk is too great. Puts the spade down, gets out the hole. How many times do people jump in the hole, pick the spade up, three spadefuls later, they've hit the seam of gold, right?
yeah,
So the metaphor there is just do not stop digging, isn't it? Keep going. Find a way. Find a
yeah.
way to make your vision work, Oscar. Wow, fascinating stuff. Cool. So, who do you who do you refer to? As a guide? Who would you say is your let's not say mentor, but your role model in this business? Where would you go for that kind of input or that kind of inspiration is a better phrase, I think.
Yeah, I've always tried not to have an inspiration, um, because I've always hated the idea of a signature. I don't want someone else's signature,
Yeah.
because again, I'd like to see myself on the same pedestal as almost anyone.
Okay.
Try not to sound too arrogant, but so the only person I really enjoy reading about is Enzo Ferrari, because I mean he is the epitome of, if you think car, you think Ferrari, and you think red. I mean, he's completely dominated the whole psyche of cars, and it's incredible that he's had that much of an impact. And the same with racing, the same with Formula One. You can't escape Ferrari. So yeah, I really enjoy reading about him and learning about him. And what I found interesting about him is, by all accounts, he was somewhat unremarkable in his younger years, and you know had no distinguishable skills that people said, oh, he's going to be great. So I think that's quite interesting because yeah, he didn't seem to have to grind every day or work harder than anyone else, or he didn't seem to be a genius. He just had a vision.
He certainly had a vision, didn't he? Um, yeah, it's interesting that you put it like that. I mean, I'm part way through a book. I'm trying frantically to remember the title of the book, and I can't remember it. It might be on the table behind me, but I think it is actually. But it's yeah, interesting insight into his backstory. Um, the whole concept of being an engineer, sort of being a driver, yeah, but not a great one. Just having this desire to be a racing car manufacturing. I mean, I don't think he really wanted to sell road cars, did he? It was his accountants that made him sell road cars because that funded
Yeah,
the race, really.
exactly. Yeah,
You're a fascinating guy. Yeah. So I think that's a good example of leveraging. Um, okay, how do I explain this? Leveraging, for me, what we would describe here at Power Play as a Marmite character,
yeah,
somebody that was extremely distinct in their persona, in their identity, in their vision, in their way of working. What did they call him? They called it the El Capitan or whatever. I mean, he was the Commendatore, right? Because
yeah.
that's Italian, yeah. So he was the he made a huge impact. Yeah. Have you read the book that I'm referring to, where
Yeah, I
it's
think I have. Yeah, but I
where it's,
can't. I've got it down here somewhere, so I'm trying to peek at what it is.
it starts off with a French guy driving a car across France, and then he
That's it. Yeah,
right. So if you're slightly spiritual, it's quite a moment, that opening to that book, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, where this guy claims that the moment that Enzo Ferrari passed away, he came and visited him by basically kicking his car.
Yeah.
Quite interesting. Quite interesting. Yeah, fascinating stuff. Let's talk a little bit about how you plan. Help people out there understand how you plan. Are you writing things down? Are you leveraging software? Are you keeping it in your head? How do you do it, Oscar?
I love lists. I think lists are great. Um,
Yeah.
and then lists organize into secondary lists. But yeah, I mean, I think first of all is what's the target, and very loose target. So if it's an event next year, it's just the first list is the event, and then you think surface level, what do we need to do to get there? Down
Right.
to the simplest thing of how do we travel from point A to point B,
Yeah.
and from that you kind of build from there. And I think it's a collaborative effort.
Mm.
Sharing those lists with others and saying, okay, this is your region, you work on this, and then just breaking it down that way. I think it's the easiest way to plan, and also then sharing what those individual people come out with
Mm.
to just check each other because you'll always miss something or have a little bias or something somewhere. So then to share your list and say, well, actually, I'll do this a bit differently, or we could save money here, or whatever it may be.
Hmm.
Um,
So you're a
so yeah,
detail guy, yeah? You're a detail man. It's all in
yeah,
the yeah.
yeah.
That's not surprising. I mean, obviously, given the industry that you're excelling in. So what are your timescales then? Are you planning 5 years ahead, 3 years ahead, 1 year ahead? How does it work for you?
I think simultaneously there's kind of a 30-year vision
Cool.
alongside
Very cool.
alongside a kind of day by day, I don't know what's happening next week vision as well. Um, yeah, I think I work well if I get up and do what I want to do
Right.
rather than I have to do something. That's quite off-putting to me.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, there is absolutely a vision of where, I mean, I've always seen the vision. So you're obviously working towards that big goal. But then I think it's important, by working day by day, to not lose yourself in going for the big goal, because I think you can start making silly decisions if you're trying to achieve too much with too little or too early. I think patience is important, which is why just waking up on the day and thinking, what can I do to improve something or build something today, I think is important.
I pity your business coach, Oscar, because he or she is probably trying to get you to write a business plan and say, come on, Oscar, what are you doing this quarter about getting this funding that you need? And clearly you are going to be resistant to doing that, aren't you? You're gonna be a little bit more, we'll see how it goes, and it'll trust the universe, it'll bring it to me. Um, are you may have watched the interview or listened to the interview. I think it was Bartlett with Metcalf, the founder of Pret a Manger. Worth digging that one out. It is Stephen Bartlett,
Okay.
actually. And Bartlett does a good job with him, does a good job in most of his interviews. He's obviously a genius. He can also play football. Did you watch him play football in that
Yeah.
England? What the
Yeah.
heck? How did he do that? Where did that come from? He comes on and scores like 48 goals in 10 minutes. That's ridiculous. Yeah, so he says to Metcalf, doesn't he, how far in advance do you plan or what's the vision? And Metcalf's very clear. He's 30 years. So I don't know if your 30-year bit was a reference to something that you've learned elsewhere, or is that just your own instinctive feeling?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it just came out of my head then. So, I mean, that's
There you
kind
go.
of where I put it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, cool. Very cool. Excellent. So let me ask you, let's change direction a little bit. Who holds you accountable? How do you do that? Have you got non-execs? Have you got investors? Have you got a board of directors? How do you make it work?
Yeah. Yeah. So we have a chairman who invested in us last year. Um,
Cool.
I guess some accountability is held by him. I'd like to say that the others, colleagues hold me accountable. I think fostering an openness to say what you think is super important. And probably the number one person would be my mother, um, who, is not afraid to say, "Don't be arrogant, don't be so stupid. You're not all you think you are." And they're very important phrases to hear.
Hats off to your mom.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah. With due respects. we're the product of the environment that we float in as little icebergs, and that matters big time. Okay, interesting. So, people often need working capital in their businesses. They need working capital, whether they're running a cafe with four people, or whether it's a race team, a fledgling car producer. So you mentioned a chairman that's invested and so forth. So just help the listener and the viewer understand, Oscar, where would you recommend people go to generate external investment? How do you feel that you'll solve the challenge ahead of your own scenario, for example?
Yeah, it's exceptionally difficult because, yeah, from my own story, we spent months and months looking in the traditional kind of, networking events and all these things. Lots going on in London all the time, you can imagine.
Yeah.
And we actually bumped into our investor in a bar. So, you can do the traditional route, or you can just bump into someone. I think sometimes there is a element of looking desperate or looking too hard, and I think people can sense that.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, you've got to look at people who, again, with the vision, kind of see what you're going for and see, well, is there anyone in the industry or, somewhat relatable industry that has followed the similar story to us or has a similar kind of value and kind of reach out to them. And I think, yeah, you've got to find people that you've got to be honest with yourself as well. I think with our business, as we're looking for investment right now, it's a risk. We're not some AI tech company that will make you power, 90 times back in 5 years. Um, there's a potential we could do that, which is why people will invest. But so I think being honest with people and just speaking to as many people as possible. I always say it only takes one. I've done some events where it's been, somewhat depressing. You talk to people all day and you get no's and you get people who just don't care. But you only need one person who just has a little spark of something, and it may not even be them. I always say, the secondary contacts are important because they'll say, oh, I know this person who does this, or I know this person who owns this. And yeah, I think just taking the time to speak with everyone, being honest, being open, and that's how you'll find it.
Yeah, it's value based, isn't it? It's humble. It's upfront. It's transparent. It is what it is.
Yeah,
Uh, are you exchanging equity for investments? Is that the plan?
we are. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So
So own a smaller percentage of a bigger pie ultimately, right?
that's it. Yeah. So at the moment, we're basically going for a raise. I mean, we're kind of changing our business plan on some conversations with other people, but we're raising between 250 and £1 million as we speak right now,
Mm.
and that'll be between 10 and 20% of the company.
Okay. So yeah, it's easier to get 1 million than 250 would be my suggestion. But
Mm.
yeah. It's cool. Okay, so for the benefit, and we'll finish on this question today, Oscar. It's been really interesting to talk to you. Actually, there might be another one. I'll reserve one more. Um, to anybody that's watching that may be interested in investing, what would you say? I mean, without putting you under too much pressure, forgive me.
I'm ready.
Yeah, why should they come and talk to you?
I mean, I think we're a brand that has proven to have a vision that will change the world of motorsport. And I don't think there's anyone else out there right now who will truly change the foundations of motorsport. Um, what we're offering is the world's only sustainable race car manufacturer, with zero emission and carbon neutral race cars. Um, it's super exciting. I mean, anyone who's driven an electric car will tell you about the performance and how that feels.
Mm.
And we're going for electric, synthetic, petrol, and hydrogen. And yeah, there's just no other car manufacturer out there that will truly impact the motorsport industry like we will.
So you're covering all three bases, basically.
Yeah, I mean, we got sick of people saying, "Oh, but petrol's better at this or hydrogen's better at this." Well, we said, "Well, you know what? You can
Do all
take your
three.
own pick."
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. You now have no excuse not to buy, not to
exactly.
engage, right?
Yeah,
Wonderful, good. So F1 is moving towards sustainable fuel from 26, I think.
yeah,
50-50 electrical to combustion engine
yeah.
power, 100 brake horsepower more apparently. So you feel that you guys are ahead of the curve then. You're getting in there early, really.
Yeah, I mean, I think a core part of our business is that we're selling commercially. So
Mm.
our cars, anyone can buy and put it in their garage and take it to their local racetrack and race themselves.
Okay.
And that's kind of a key distinction for us is that, we're not selling just to run a one make championship, although, we'd love that. But yeah, we're selling to consumers and we're selling to people. We don't want to build an electric race car that you need a team of 20 people and £1 million a year to run.
Right.
We're selling cars that you can plug in, turn on, and race, even if you're, your traditional gentleman driver, you might be 60 plus and still racing. Um, you know,
Describing me that I'm younger than that.
many of them are coming into their prime and I just know some 70-year-old
That's
race
better.
drivers.
That's much better. Yeah, I like that.
So yeah, I mean, we're offering a true experience of future tech at an affordable, you know, price and a very manageable option for someone that they could just run themselves and enjoy.
Mm. How often do you get behind the wheel these days?
Not that often. I mean, it costs money. So I'd rather someone pay me to drive a car rather than me paying. Um, yeah, it'll happen some more. We're working hard right now. Once it gets a bit more successful, I'm sure it'll be very often.
I don't know what it is that's telling me that. Bruce McLaren, um, Frank Williams, maybe. A lot of I'm probably missing Jordan. Okay. Brabham was what's his face, wasn't it? The guy that owned F1 sold it out to
Yeah, Eccleston. Yeah,
Eccleston. So they're all race. They're Ferrari. They're all race drivers in their own right, aren't they? There's something. I'm speaking as a fellow motorsport slash racing nut job, and somebody that can actually get in a race car and do it. I'm not suggesting world championship level. Don't get me wrong, but even somebody that is able to hustle a car around a circuit in a proper way, not as a track day warrior, which is a very different thing. For me, there's a lot of affinity there with what you're doing. It's there's a credibility attached to that. I feel it's interesting. One thing is completely clear to me, Oscar. You own a marketing business that actually is a producer of beautiful racing cars and um, provision of motorsport related services. It's a reality, isn't it, that businesses like yours and many people listening and watching, if they don't figure marketing out, they don't have a business. Ultimately, it's really quite
yeah.
a powerful statement and reality check. So we wish you all the very best of luck with this. I have no doubt that you're coming back on a business spotlight 6, 12 months down the line, telling us about your next round of funding and what you're going to do next. And you mentioned to me before the show that did you say that you were about a year away from the launch of the first cars? Is that right or not? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, depending on when this funding comes in, I mean, we could get two cars out in 2 months if the funding came in tomorrow. So yeah, it's very much on the horizon.
And just from again, I can't help it. Purely from an engineering and manufacturing perspective, British built, British manufactured.
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, I mean, we really wanted to foster that kind of great British engineering of, a Lotus built in a shed or something like that. And
Yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah.
it's a core theme of our kind of design philosophy is we're not trying to go super high tech because I don't think that attracts people. We want to make a car that feels like you're in a rolling shell of metal, a bomb on wheels, slightly terrifying. That's what we're going for.
Yeah, yeah. I raced the car for a couple of seasons. That once they got me in it and shut the door, strapped me in it, shut me in it. It did go through my mind once or twice, and you have to lose that very quickly, as you know. The minute you start the engine, it does disappear. You can't. It just goes. I don't. There's something about people that race cars. They don't. It's there, but then as soon as they roll the wheels, the engine starts. It's gone. But it did
Yeah.
occur to me that I'm like a part of this. If we hit anything hard, it's going to be difficult to split the two. You know what I mean? It would be.
Yeah.
It's just the reality of the game. Oscar, brilliant. Thank you so much for joining in. We really appreciate it. I'm sure that everybody watching has experienced a slightly different business spotlight today. We've been a little bit like the last one, actually, less rigid. And I've enjoyed that conversation flow with you. So thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you very much. And like you said, I think the next interview, 6 to 12 months, maybe let's do it while driving a car, driving one of our cars.
No, 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 don't tease me. Don't. You're on. That's a good, absolutely. Thank you again, Oscar. We'll see you soon.
No worries. Thank you very much.